You can start and build a great business, hire a top-tier team, but everything changes in an instant when the bank decides to freeze your business account. As experienced entrepreneurs, you remember that unforgettable feeling, let's call it that, when it's impossible to pay your employees their salaries. Investors are panicking. What to do? Contractors need to be paid. And of course, if your personal accounts aren't frozen yet, you might be able to resolve this issue. But nevertheless, we're talking about business processes, and naturally, you'd want some kind of safety net. Moreover, your business account could be frozen for some completely inexplicable reason. I mean, we're talking about a legal business where you have all the necessary contracts with vendors or, say, employee agreements just because the bank felt like freezing it. Has that happened? My name is Sveta Jeremej. I'm a managing partner at Formula Flaga, and we specialize in building international business architecture. Let's put it this way. Nowadays, it's not enough to just get advice on which bank is best for opening an account. Currently, you need to approach it by asking, do you really need to open an account in this specific bank, in this specific country? Does this particular banking system suit your operational needs? And then there are the subsequent issues like paying employees, office rent, and other overhead costs. So we're going to dive into this matter in much more detail now. It's understandable that when you open in an unfamiliar country, let's call it that, the main goal is just to get an account anywhere. But that's only until the first transaction, because after that, you'll have to verify your business in that jurisdiction, the physical office, the actual employees, where the contractors are from, whether you're bypassing sanctions, and how you fit into their risk profile. But if you take a more professional approach, you need to assess all these risks in advance and choose the right option from the start. Moreover, if you think the bank only looks at the legality of the business and how clean the documents are, my fellow entrepreneurs know what I mean, then you're stuck in 2010. Because today there are various criteria for evaluating your business, including, for example, your personal residency. So having great documents alone is far from enough for a bank. Well, let's put it very, very simply. Imagine you're a bank and you're evaluating a profile based on its risk level, right? Meaning which country you're doing business in, how you manage it, what your current expenses are, taxes, and so on. And there are certain jurisdictions where it's easier for a bank to just refuse you because the cost of servicing you as a client is too high. Returning to the reality of business, which we discussed in another video, so go check it out, watch it, and be sure to comment. I want to touch on a topic that perhaps some banks might even be fine with. For example, your current situation is an online business, a few employees, you have small turnovers, say around 10 million and no more. Nevertheless, this will be like a temporary solution for the bank for some reason, where under some other convenient circumstances your accounts could also be blocked. I think it would be logical to share a small case study of my clients where they opened accounts on their own and did so successfully. I'm not saying anything bad, but nevertheless, it was logical that the bank for some reason opened these accounts, and then for some reason it turned out that after 3 or 4 months, the accounts were blocked. Guess why? We've just talked a bit about the case, what the bank looks at, and I might surprise you, but banks have been using artificial intelligence for a long time and consider you not just from the perspective of documents in manual mode, how well you fit, but also your actions are predicted, including some transactional activities from different jurisdictions, how this will affect the bank. Yes, in a good or, say, not so good way, in order to somehow continue servicing your accounts. Moreover, in 2026, every transaction in a bank must have a certain business purpose. Well, in other words, many founders ignore this, thinking I'll just withdraw some of the money to my personal accounts. Why not? Yeah, my name seems to match in the incorporation documents. Why can't I withdraw to a personal account? Tell me why. Everyone who has already faced account blocking already knows the answer to this question. Nevertheless, many people like to write off some of their personal tasks as expenses. This can be done, but under certain circumstances with a supporting document, yes, and so on and so forth. So just taking and withdrawing money, I think that's already a clear situation and there's no need to explain it. But every time in practice, we find that we have to explain even such trivial things. That is, what worked in your country and was fine there will not work in Europe, 100%. Well, let's put it this way. A common story is also our favorite United Arab Emirates. You are a tax resident there. Either you don't pay taxes or you pay the minimum 9%. It doesn't matter. Use Lithuanian neobanks, Hello Revolut and others, nevertheless. But you want, for example, to scale within Europe. And then you realize that for a bank in Europe, and I'm not just talking about Portugal, I mean other countries in general, your structure becomes quite unclear to the bank. Why? Because you don't pay taxes in the United Arab Emirates, or you pay very little. So it's not really possible to assess your risks properly. Neobanks, well, okay, as one of the solutions for a certain period of time, they can be used. However, if we're talking about Europe, we want to see something more fundamental, to get a feel for the business, see if there are local employees or not. Do you pay any social security contributions? How serious are you really? I mean, what is the reason you want to open a business here? Is it for citizenship by investment, relocation, or say entering new markets? So just saying I'll open it because I want to have some accounts there, well, in 2026, that won't work. Not at all. Well, to put it briefly, let me scare you a bit. The triangle of death. Well, because the tax residency is unclear. Neobanks, crypto, it's all great, of course, but very interesting and also not very clear. So we need to build some kind of real business for you out of this system. And your business is an online business, which might be not entirely clear for the European market. So how can we expect to have something more stable here in Europe, for example, if there's a completely different logic, a different mentality, and a different approach to business? So I don't want to scare you. I just want to try once again to open your eyes to reality. Not on fantasies of how great it could be, but on optimizing your taxes, optimizing your business, and doing things correctly. Because in any uncertain situation, a proper business is more resilient than one that was just, sketched on a napkin. Well, not always, but still. Share your experience. So if we're talking about solutions, how we ideally see the banking structure, we're talking about 3 banks. The first is an operational bank, which is where your main expenses will be: employees, salaries, all the social benefits, and so on and so forth. That's the one bank that serves as your primary one, a reserve bank. This means that if for some reason your main bank is blocked, you'll be able to use this one in your time of need, right? If it happens that both the first and second banks are blocked, naturally, we're talking about a third solution, which might be in another jurisdiction, with supporting documents and a clear structure. And most importantly, all 3 of these banks should not be in conflict with each other. This is the main thing we'll focus on in our company when we work with your business. Well, of course, we're talking about not putting all your eggs in one basket. That would be obvious. But nevertheless, it seems that if one bank works, then basically everything is solved. That's not true. Moreover, if you're already scaling, that is, your business has clearly grown, but you're still in the same old structure and you realize you're no longer agile and it's cramped, that's a direct path to contact us. We understand the pain points of big business. We understand how hard it is for you to open accounts, how hard it can be to open companies. Not because it's hard, mentally or in monetary terms, but because you realize that maybe this structure doesn't really suit you. So we take all these solutions upon ourselves and offer them to you. You can learn about our services and the solutions we offer on our website. Follow the link in the description. We'll be waiting.